Hi guys, Allie Marie here. This is the second episode of season 2. As far as today goes, I had decided that I was going to address some of the search bars that I have on TikTok. So today I will be addressing the search bar, Allie Marie transphobia. I've talked about transphobia before recently, about a year ago. I think it was, maybe a little over a year ago. I did a video of the Catholic point of view on transphobia, homophobia. But I wanted to look back at videos with you guys. It's always fun to revisit content I made 6, 8, whatever. I've been making content for about 10 years, 8 years, 10 years, something. And it's always fun to look back at it, just kind of see what my point of view was, what did I say might be up and coming, what is current events right now. And just kind of going into that because I know that some of my old videos had circulated at some point a couple years back, and I'm interested in discussing them now. And so I'm open to all questions and comments, probably primarily on Instagram. I'd prefer to respond in story format than in comments, if that makes sense. I feel that TikTok really limits the dialogue, and I really do want this to be a conversation. I even have on my YouTube channel a conversation with a transgender individual named Asher. We sat and talked for over an hour and recorded that conversation. We obviously also talked before and after in pieces that I did not share, but and we have remained connected and chat here and there ever since. So that is also live, just to see what I feel a productive dialogue may look like. They did tell me that they felt that it was one of the most productive dialogues that they had had with a Catholic, because I wasn't sitting there saying you're condemned to hell, and I wasn't saying that because I don't believe it, and that's not what the church teaches. So I'm hoping that through these couple videos that we're going to look at from my YouTube channel from back in the day, I'm hoping that I do address that also, and that I offer the love and understanding that the church offers in these contexts, and what we have to do to operate as a society, because we aren't just a bunch of individuals coexisting with each other, right? We are a community. We are the body of Christ. Ultimately, truly, we are all children of God, but we are the body of Christ. So we are intertwined and connected in a way that defeats individuality in a certain sense. Obviously, we are all individuals. There is no one in the world like us. God has formed our innermost being. We are all going to be unique and have our own strengths and weaknesses and things that we can offer to the world. One of my favorite quotes is, I believe, by Elizabeth Elliot, who stated, when I die, I would pray that I would be able to stand before God and say, I used everything you gave me. I have nothing less. I used everything that you gave me. And that's really my goal in life, is just, I want to use the talents that he gave me. And I want everyone. I want you to feel encouraged to use your talents. I want you to bring glory to God and glory to his kingdom, and to find where it is that we can most honor him with our lives that he has given us. How can we love best? How can we grow in holiness? How can we pursue him and then experience that life that he has to offer us, right? Those are all things that he wants for us, and in turn I want for you. So this is a conversation. I am keeping that at the forefront of my mind. I understand that there might be things I say in a video or two here. I don't know. Some of these videos are shorter. They're only 5 minutes. But there might be something I say that I'm like, maybe I was a little off base there. I'm not sure. I have not watched these in their entirety today. I am going to be watching it real time with you as well. So maybe you've seen these before, maybe you haven't. Either way, I guess we'll just kind of dive in this together. So here we go. This first one is going to be, it was posted March 8th of 2015. So what is that, 9 years ago? Just about 9 years ago. It's called Love vs. Tolerance, the first transgender female in a locker room that made national news. So 9 years ago really isn't that far. You're still within a decade of things changing, and we have seen a lot evolve. Like, even from reading that title, I can say, oh wow, I was just reading an article the other day about a 50-year-old man who identifies as a woman that got to compete with teenagers in the swim competition and utilize their locker room. And the parents were calling the police because this, person with a penis went into a teenage girl's locker room to change. And the fact that anybody thinks that's okay is beyond me. Like, I don't understand why I don't see that story covered on more news articles, or why I don't see people who even support the LGBTQ community, like, speaking out in outrage against that, because I think that we should all want to protect our children and say that is reprehensible and disgusting and not okay. Clearly, there is something going on with this individual that is outside of the norm, and you can try to make whatever you want normal, but it is, I had the conversation just the other day about certain things being disordered, right? And they took issue with that word. They said, oh, I hate that word, disorder. And I said, well, it's just the opposite of order, right? Like disease is the opposite of ease. You have dis-ease. That was another one that we just talked about recently. So you have, dis-ease, you have disorder. So you have an order to things. There's a natural order to the world, which I did watch the first 5 seconds, and I do say that here. But yeah, so anyway, I'm probably just getting ahead of myself. That when I read about that story, it's happening in Canada, I felt so sick for days. I just wanted to cry. It made me so upset because it is just so not okay. And my husband even said, well, why are those parents even continuing to let their children compete? Why aren't all the parents just pulling their kids and not leave anybody for them to compete against? And right. So anyway, let's check this out. Love versus tolerance. Here we go.
So first, I'd just like to state that there's a natural order to the universe. It takes a male and a female to reproduce and to create new life.
So whether that male and female do it in a conventional or non-conventional way, it will always take a man and a woman to create life.
Yesterday, it was brought up in discussion, and then I read online an account of a woman at a Planet Fitness gym who complained to management because there was a transgender male in the female locker room because he identified himself as a female, and the woman's membership ended up being revoked because she was talking with other gym members about it. And since Planet Fitness says they're a judgment-free zone, they said that if somebody identifies as a female, that they can use the female locker room. So this takes us to a point where we have to kind of look at where is society headed, and does it have to go that way?
I think it's interesting here that I say transgender male. I had a conversation about this on TikTok where it was like, okay, you guys were using the male, female as the biological definition, and transgender means that they're the opposite of it. And so there was this whole conversation of, well, is it a transgender male or transgender female, whatever. And it's like, but then they're like, well, no, it's not female or male. It's woman versus man. There's certain things that it's biological, but certain ways that it's the gender association and how biological sex and gender aren't the same. But then diving deeper into that discussion, it really seemed that they actually have been conflated, and people are trying to say that they're different but then use them in the same terms. And so everything ends up falling apart because the language is not clear enough, because there is a difference between biological sex and experience. There's a difference between experience and reality. And so, right, I just thought it was interesting that I did say transgender male in this, because that's how I understand it. You're a transgender male. You are biologically a male who is transgender. Like, you are experiencing something opposite. And everyone, the way that LGBTQ has defined it has said, no, you call them a woman because that's what they identify as. So they're a transgender woman, meaning that transgender is the superior part, right? Because woman is not actually, it's the fact that they're transgender because they're opposite of what is being stated biologically. Right. It ends up getting confusing in my mind, at least. And so I said transgender male, and in the thing I said transgender female in the caption of the subtitle of my title of this video. So that's a whole tangent in and of itself. I'm a tangent person. That's what a podcast is for, right? I'm supposed to be able to just share my thoughts as I have them, and you're going to enjoy listening to them. Just kidding. You can stop listening at any point. I don't know. I'm just sharing myself.
First off, I would be on the side with the people that would agree. I probably would have just canceled my membership. Mainly because with opening this door, it opens it to people who do have questionable motives. Granted, there are transgender people who genuinely do identify as female, and like males who identify as females and vice versa. But it would be easy for me to cut my hair off and dress as a guy if I wanted to get into the guys' locker room to check out guys. So it opens that door for men to do that for women and women to do that for men, and that crosses boundaries. And so when we look at at the body. I haven't read Theology of the Body, but I've heard enough about it and I know a summary. So when we look at the body and understand how God has created us, when we begin to examine these sex changes or these hormone therapies that prevent children from entering puberty so that they don't have this emotional wreck when they have to, when their voice lowers or when their boobs start to grow or anything, when we start repressing those things and modifying the body against how we were created, we then make ourselves God, which is pride. So this whole idea of entering into a sex change or anything like that that goes against the natural cycle of life of who we're created to be, because it takes a male and female squirrel to create squirrel babies, and just as it takes so
I have to press pause. I have so many thoughts. I would be just pausing every 5 seconds to interject what I'm thinking. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But because I'm like, oh, I should rewind it. Wait, what was my thought here? Oh, wait, what was my thought there? I feel like I just have so many thoughts about all of these things because I feel like common sense tells us the answer that we need. If you really just sit and think about it, think about what is proper. I loved that I used the term boundaries because boundaries are so important in our lives. And they're, I mean, my YouTube channel, or not YouTube, my TikTok channel exploded. 365,000 followers because I was sharing language to set boundaries politely, to say this is what we need. All of my videos maintained relationship with the person. Nothing was cutting somebody off or saying, well, then I don't know if we can see you anymore if you won't listen to me. It was, here's my boundary. This is what I need. And I'm going to try to help you understand why it is that it needs to be this way. And so that's what I feel I did and am doing in this video, where I'm like, is this really where we want things headed? I think it's funny that I state here, I probably would have just canceled my membership and gone somewhere else, which honestly is like the permissive approach, right? It's like, okay, well, no one's going to want to work out with you if you do this or something like that, right? Where it's, I'm leaving it alone and I'm making a choice for myself. Which, yeah, I mean, ultimately is what I can do. And I hear that too. And it's like, well, does that mean I'm transphobic? If I am nervous or don't want to change in front of a male, does that make me transphobic because they identify as a female? Does that, I feel like it's almost gaslighting to me to tell me that I shouldn't care because they identify as a woman. It's like they don't have the same body parts as me. And I remember a lesbian commenting on one of my videos where I stated something along those lines. And they said, oh, well, I'm attracted to women and I'm going to be in that locker room with you checking you out. So, ooh. Just like, okay, great. I change in the stall most of the time as it is because I am attracted to the same sex. And so I avert my eyes, similar to if I'm playing a card game with my daughter and she's holding her cards are leaning out. And if I look, I could see, or, whoever, my husband, my dad, whoever it might be, that's, the cards are leaning. I avert my eyes and I say, hey, I can see your cards. Please get it up. And I don't know what cards they have because I don't want to cheat. I don't want to look at those cards. And so when you've garnered a level of respect for other people, when you understand your own inclinations, you know what you can or can't handle. And so I don't watch videos that show naked bodies. I don't enter locker rooms where I know I'm going to encounter a situation that's going to cause me to ultimately lust after something that I don't want, because I don't experience the same level of peace, joy, happiness, the fruits of the Spirit that God has to offer me when I follow the natural order, when I follow the laws and rules that He has set, which are very clearly laid out in Catholicism, which is why I became Catholic at 21. 11 years ago now, I've been Catholic. And it's just, it's a part of life. But so you can say, oh, I'm a lesbian and I'm going to be checking you out in the locker room. It's like, okay, that's also not okay. Why are you, that's predatory behavior. Do you understand that? Do you understand how that's predatory? And so that's where it's like you're taking somebody that's in a vulnerable position, taking somebody that needs to change to get ready to go swimming, and you're saying, oh, well, I'm going to be checking you out. Okay, this 50-year-old who identifies as a teenage girl is allowed to use this locker room, and somehow it has not created outrage online, which is honestly right beyond me.
So we're going against the natural progression. And it ends up making us feel that we're greater than God. And it goes to that with the embryonic stem cell research and anything, or artificial insemination, any of those types of things. But in addition to that, as Christians and as Catholics and as popes have said, we're called to love and have compassion too. So there's a difference between loving and tolerating. So loving, on one hand, is willing the ultimate good.
I'm really glad that I'm saying to have compassion because I'm starting to get worked up. I'm starting to feel like I want to cry. I'm starting to feel frustrated with this conversation, which I'm just communicating because it's how I feel, because I feel very passionately about protecting natural order. I think it's a really important thing in our world to eat natural foods and not stuff that's way over processed. I think it's really important that we don't overproduce way too much stuff. I think it's really important that we try to keep trees growing and grow grass and have natural, you talk about environment, climate change, all these things, like wanting to preserve green energy, everything. It's like we are called to be stewards of this world and just making sure that we're not, it's obviously not, it can't be all or nothing. It's like I'm sitting here looking at my Keurig. I have screens in my home. It's not an all or nothing. Like, we live in the 21st century. There are going to be aspects of our life that aren't going to be, that we have to live by candlelight with a horse and buggy. Like, there's obviously going to be a balance, right? Because of the time that we live. And so we just have to find where is that balance and how do we maintain integrity and respect for how it is that we are created and how God has called us to live. So, love versus tolerance. Let's hear what I have to say.
For that person, and continually, so we're called to love our neighbor, we're called to love everyone, and it's actually wishing the best for them. And then there's tolerance, which puts up with anything that they do, which is different.
And this is all applicable to parenting too. Love versus tolerance. We want to love our kids, but we don't want to tolerate all of their behavior. You have to correct their behavior. So we're not sitting there tolerating. There's probably a certain level of tolerance that you have with a toddler who's screaming over the color cup that they have, but then you're loving them too. You want their ultimate good, which is that you don't want them to be a spoiled brat. You don't want them to throw a temper tantrum every single time they can't have the blue cup. And so maybe you tolerate it to a certain degree where you say, okay, well, and then you have to say, okay, this is the cup that you are getting. If you do not stop, you are not getting a cup at all, because their ultimate good is that they would understand how they would find a way to cope with not being able to get what they want, because we are not always going to get what we want in life. It is a simple matter-of-fact thing. And so we as parents need to prepare our children for that, not always getting what they want.
I'm sure that if the disciples hadn't changed their way, because Christ says, "Come follow me," if the tax collector had continued cheating people, and I don't know anything else, but if people hadn't actually turned away from their old way of life, they wouldn't have become those followers of Christ. Because whenever Christ heals anyone, whenever he does anything, he says, "Turn away and follow me." Turn from your life of sin and follow me. And through that grace that's granted, we're able to turn and live a life of fulfillment and live in a way that's happy and joyful, while denying those things that are so counterproductive to us going along with the natural cycle of life.
I have been saying recently, I've been saying it quite a bit, Jesus says, "Come as you are." He does not say, "Stay as you are." There is a huge differentiating factor there, right? We are called to come as we are. Absolutely. That is why with Pope Francis coming out recently, clarifying the stance on giving same-sex attracted people blessings, but not blessing the union, right? It's like, come as you are. We want you to experience what it is that God has to offer. And a relationship with God is a two-way street. We have to offer ourselves to him. We can't just expect to, it is a free gift, but we have to accept the gift and then we have to use it. And when we use that gift, we do learn how to deny ourselves, how to embrace what it is that he's called us to, so that we can live that life of fulfillment.
So today at Mass, in church, they talked about the Samaritan woman at the well and how Jesus asked her for water and how she said, "What are you doing talking to me?" And he talks about how he's the living water and how he is the one, if you come after me, you will never thirst. And in talking, like Mother Teresa, she had written the I thirst and talking about how much Christ thirsts for us to long after him. And so we have the opportunity then to love anyone in the LGBT community, but still not support and condone the behavior. Because we can love and wish for their well-being, which then ends up being your well-being will be in surrendering that to God. Like me, I like to drink. So what do? I don't drink.
And then go on to continue. I compare it to alcoholism, right? Which I think people were upset about because they said that it's not a choice, which I still am so staunchly against. You can't call it not a choice. Sure, you don't necessarily have a choice how you're tempted in life. You will have temptations pop up at you everywhere. I shared not all that long ago, but when I was at Meijer, I was walking past all these hanging baskets, and if I wanted, I could have just grabbed one and been like, hey, yeah, no. And if somebody tried to ask me, be like, oh, no, I let them know at the register that I wanted one, and I paid for it inside already, and they would have said, probably been like, oh, that's fine. Yep, have a great night. I was tempted to steal one. That doesn't make me a thief, though, just because I wanted to take one and knew I could get away with it if I did, right? That it means that I have surrendered something, I utilized my self-control, and I did not steal. The same thing goes for same-sex attraction. You can have the temptation of wanting to, pursue a relationship of the same sex, and there are ways to diminish that as well by avoiding the near occasion of sin, right? You're not watching shows like Game of Thrones or whatever it might be that depict such, I want to say heinous actions, because I only ever watched the first episode of the first season and was mortified at what I witnessed, and am still shocked that people will openly admit that they watch that show. To be quite honest, it is such a grotesque show. It is entirely inappropriate for somebody who is a follower of Christ. It is, it's just entirely unacceptable. So I don't know. You avoid the near occasion of sin, and yet you still can't choose when you will be tempted. When Christ wandered the desert during Lent, he was tempted by the devil, make this rock into bread and whatever else. And Jesus says, man cannot live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Son or from the Bible, I don't know the specific words right now. But it's all about, we can't choose our temptations. We can choose how we handle them. We choose whether or not we are going to give in to temptation and sin, or turn away from temptation and draw closer to God, which it is only through the grace of God that we can consistently overcome those temptations. It is through the blood of Christ that our sins are forgiven, and we have redemption to be able to say no to temptations. There is no good thing that comes from me. It is all through the Lord. And that is what it means to receive the grace of God, that free gift that God has to offer you. You are able to overcome whatever temptation comes your way by the grace of God. It will not be attainable on your own. You have to seek the Lord. So that is what that means. I'm probably way off topic of this video. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about this topic.
I deny myself alcohol. And do I do that on my own accord? There's no way. Without God's grace, which I have not been seeking lately, I'm miserable. And I've been miserable the last couple weeks because of everything just going on, and I haven't been truly seeking after God in it. But coming to the realization that it's, oh yeah, once I surrender that to him and seek him for the guidance and look for him in the body and blood, in communion or the Eucharist, in Mass, and I'm going to confession and trying to seek him through the sacraments, that's when the ability to step back from the sin is in a joyful way, and I can face the trials with joy. Additionally to that, C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, he talks about the law of nature, and he talks about how we have societal norms, and we have these things around us that it's kind of an expectation of how we're expected to behave. And I know that with the society that we have now, we're expected to question our sexual interest. I know that I was pretty much, when I was in college and everything, it was, well, why haven't you dated a girl? And it's just like, well, I like guys, but it was looked down upon that I hadn't at least tried it because, well, who knows? But it's against the natural order, and when we look at tradition and everything else, back to arranged marriages or anything like that, back before technology has come to where it is today, which it has never been this advanced. We see a totally different lifestyle and a totally different mindset in society. So,
I feel like crying, honestly, because I think it's wild to me that I am speaking 9 years ago. This was me 9 years ago. And this steadfastness of, I could have uttered the exact same words today. I did before I even watched it, right? I shared literally exactly what I shared. 9 years later, the consistency. And it's consistent because it's Catholic. Catholic doctrine is so reliable, you guys. That is why I became Catholic, because I needed that stability. I needed to know what it was and why it was that way. And I needed to know that it wasn't going to change. And the fact that it hasn't changed and my life has been so transformed by this, by my faith, by the faith that has been offered to me through the magisterium, through the Catholic Church, like, it is so mind-blowing to me, because I was just so miserable, because I have other videos where I've talked about like past vices and how they catch up to us. Like, I was going through so much in March of 2015 because December of 2014, 3 months prior to this, almost, it was 2.5 months, whatever, prior to this, I had my brain surgery. I had a craniotomy. I had a golf ball sized tumor removed. My brother died 2 days later. And I fell into some past vices that had gone on before I had become Catholic. And just the fact that this has remained so consistent, like, that is just so much proof to me on how the Holy Spirit works, and how the Holy Spirit has like worked in my life specifically, but also how he can work in yours. Because I am not some, supernatural whatever. Like, I'm just a person just like you. I am like your everyday on the street, like at the store, stay at home mom, whatever. I am nothing special. And I think it's funny that I say that, because I remember when my husband and I were first starting to have kids, and I think we were having our first daughter, I asked him, I was like, well, will you tell our daughters that they're special? He said he wouldn't. He said, because they're not. Like, everyone is, whatever. And it was so funny that he said that. And now, obviously, I don't know if that's changed or not. It's not something he tells them. I tell them that they're special. And, I think it's interesting that I think of myself as, like, nothing special. It's like I'm just your average person. I don't know. And that's really what he wants to instill in our children. He doesn't want them to think that they're better than anybody else. And that's what he meant by, like, I'm not going to tell them that they're special, because he doesn't want them thinking that they're superior or any better than the next person, because honestly, like, they're not. We're all just human beings walking along this path, trying to find our way, trying to hopefully find solace in the Lord and each other, growing in community, and trying to build a society that is sustainable, that's going to be fruitful for generations to come. That should be our goal. We need to be thinking forward into what we want to leave for our children and for our children's children. Because I know for a fact that I do not want a 50-year-old man in the locker room with my teenage daughter. Like, come on. I don't know who would. Why is any parent okay with that? Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you speaking out? And I'm talking about the people who make this their platform. I'm talking about the people that make this, like, super pro all of it. Like, why aren't the people who are so openly for this against this part?
I don't know if we're going to go to having gender neutral locker rooms or what exactly we're going to do, but I just hope and encourage anyone who doesn't agree to speak out and just continue to pray and to love, but to understand that difference between loving and tolerating, and just moving forward with a genuine interest in well-being, but also understanding fully what that is. Because I mean, even like alcoholism, it's a disease of the mind. It's a psychological issue that I work through continuously, and it's not easy. And it's a very similar thing, because if I were,
I'm going to say, I said disease there, right? So disease is dis-ease. It is not as easy, and life is easier when we overcome these psychological temptations.
if I were to pursue it, then I wouldn't. I mean, it would ultimately end up killing me. Probably. I don't know, but it could. I know it does, other people. So, um, yeah. But that's basically all. I mean, love is God loves us, but also just understanding that His grace grants and can give miracles. So I hope you guys have a great Sunday. I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.
What I said there, the love your neighbor as yourself, right? God calls us to love. I've also talked about that more recently on how love your neighbor as yourself, but we're also called to love ourselves in a very particular way. When we're loving ourselves in a way that is willing the ultimate good and trying to grow closer to God and grow in holiness, then what it means to love our neighbor is that we want them to grow in holiness. We want them to grow closer to God. We want them to understand what it means to live in communion with God. So that's what loving your neighbor looks like when it comes to the actual Christian definition. I posted on my Instagram stories not all that long ago. It was maybe even just a few days ago that it was something along the lines of Christianity is so screwed up right now because society is trying to define what love means for the Christian when society doesn't define love as a Christian would. Or the same thing about grace and the same thing about anything. Like, we have to be looking biblically. We have to be looking at the interpretations of those biblical passages. We have to be looking at how they were explained in the early church. There are so many facets about it all that tie together and ultimately will the good of everybody so that we can grow in communion with God and restore the natural order for how He originally created us. Moving forward, I am going to go through one more video. Podcasts can be up to an hour long, right? And that's pretty normal. So you get another video response here. We're at 33 minutes, but hopefully you have a long drive. That's when people listen to these, right? I don't know. As I said in my previous, season 2, episode 1, I don't listen to podcasts. I am not a big consumer of media. I just put out there what it is that God leads me to. But I did not watch a whole lot of TikTok before I started uploading TikToks. I've never really watched many YouTube channels or videos. I just kind of try to do what it is the Lord's calling me to and say, Lord, I know there's a lot online. Utilize my voice however it is that you want, because I have no clue what's going on. I just want to, be a beacon of your light. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's why I'm here. So this next one that I'm going to talk about is my reaction to X getting added to birth certificates, which is also another title that I did change. It was originally This Transgender Movement is Getting Out of Hand. And so this is one that also circulated a couple years back, and so I wanted to rewatch this entire thing. I might have at that point, this was probably one that I took private for a while. It is public now. It's been public, and we'll just kind of see. I might, I don't know. I was thinking about looking at some of these comments also, but no, we'll just stick to the videos. Here we go.
So I just wanted to talk for a moment today about how you are loved for who you are. In America today, we have this crazy influx of this transgender awareness that is honestly getting out of hand. So just like somebody...
Pausing to say this was uploaded in August of 2017. So this was, 7 years ago? And I'm a camp counselor in this video. I kind of stepped off to the side. But yeah, so 7 years ago is when they added X to the birth certificates.
Can be anorexic and want liposuction. Somebody can be transgender and think they're a boy and want to physically become a girl. We wouldn't give the anorexic person liposuction, and John Hopkins will not give transgender people the gender reassignment surgery for that specific reason. It's body dysmorphia.
I will say, at this point, when I recorded this video, that was accurate. It's no longer accurate. Now, John Hopkins, obviously, it does engage in the medical pursuit of reassigning gender, which again perplexes me. Jumping off of this gender versus biological sex thing, people say they're separate, but then you have people, if gender and biological sex are different, then why is it that if somebody feels that their gender is opposite, that they need to change their biological sex? Then you're talking about body dysmorphia. that is in the same realm as anorexia. If somebody is experiencing body dysmorphia, I experience this, okay? I experience body dysmorphia. I understand how it works. When I was younger, I would look in the mirror and tell my mom I thought I looked like a boy. I felt like my face had masculine features. I didn't understand why. When I'm older, even now, through my life, my body has always looked larger than it actually is. I will look in the mirror and think I look huge. I will see somebody else in real life and we will say, oh, we wear the same size pants. I'm like, there's no way. You are so much smaller than I am. They look at me like I'm crazy and they tell me, no, what are you talking about? We're the same size. And it blows my mind because when I look at my body in the mirror, it looks way larger than what they look like. But apparently we're the same size, which doesn't even make sense to me, right? It's like, no, I'm definitely larger than you. So that's body dysmorphia, right? Maybe less the masculine features of the face because whatever, but that inaccurate visualization of our bodies. When somebody's anorexic, I've struggled with with eating disorders all through my life. I've been told, my mom used to be like super thin, taller. She was like model. She went to finishing school, very well-intentioned, wanted to be sure that I lived a very happy, put together, wholesome life. I had been told ever since I was in like 5th or 7th grade that I needed to go on a diet. I remember going to a Weight Watchers class with her, when I was probably in middle school. This constant pressure to be smaller, be smaller, be smaller. And I think I weighed 130, 140 through high school. And when I look back at pictures, like most of us women, wow, I'm so thin. What was I thinking? Right? And that's what we think of 5 years ago and 2 years ago and whatever. When we look back at pictures, we're like, oh, I thought I was big then. Wow, I look great then. So, but anyway, I'm making light of something because this is what I do and I'm uncomfortable. But yeah, so I had been told even when I was what I would consider slender, I was still being told that I needed to lose weight. So I think that fed into my body dysmorphia. When I was in 3rd grade, I was bullied a lot over having a mustache because I have dark hair, fair skin. And so that probably affected me. I had a unibrow. The first time that somebody plucked my eyebrows, I was in 5th grade and it was a girl and she did the straight edges right here on the side and I literally just kept them forever. I remember getting teased saying, there was a boy who always was like, stop shaving your eyebrows. Da, 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 da. They look so bad. Stop shaving your eyebrows. Like, do you just take a razor? And, just very unkind about physical appearance. And so I have experienced a lot of different really negative things about my features and my body, which at this point I feel very comfortable in because I know that I'm loved as a child of God. I know that my husband loves me. I know that my children aren't comparing me to anybody. They love me exactly as I am, whether my tummy feels like slime or not. It is what it is, and it's great. And I'm really glad that I've been able to grow into myself naturally and that my mom didn't take me to get liposuction when I wanted to be thinner or that, when I said that I wanted a penis so that I could pee outside, that she didn't take me to stop my transitioning or when I felt awkward going through puberty, trying to figure out whether I was a skater or this or that. Like, I was just allowed to grow into myself in the natural order and the natural progression that is life.
No, this is beyond the 5-year-old girl who says, oh, I want to be able to run around outside with my shirt off and pee in the woods. Like when I was 5 years old, I wanted to do that. And if I had one of these politically driven parents and they were just like, oh, you're a boy. Like you like to play in the dirt and do these things. Like we should prevent you from going through puberty. We should do all these things. It's asinine. Okay, you do not need to mutilate your body to be who you are and to be loved for who you are. For me,
I do think it's asinine that people are told that they have to. I think that there are so many conversations about about a large chunk. I won't say everyone, it's a generalization. I will say there is a large chunk of trauma that is here, right? We have trauma. I had an idea of a book that I'm being reminded of in this moment, actually, that I had not been able to be getting around to. And it might be something that I really put my focus on. I've been saying that for years. I'm going to put my focus on a book. I'm going to put my focus on a book. Well, I also said I was going to start a podcast, and I hadn't. Now I have. So maybe the Lord is going to start working through me in a different way. I don't know. But I am being reminded of a book that I very much want to talk about. But when you talk about, generational trauma, and you talk about these different things of trauma that people have gone through that cause them to dissociate, that cause them to want to be out of their body. They want to dissociate with whatever happened to them, specifically sexual trauma. A lot of the time, they no longer want to be a girl because of this trauma, because if I wasn't a girl, this wouldn't have happened to me. They start blaming themselves. Trauma survivors, very, very, very common. And so there's that level that ultimately doesn't get explored enough prior to these conversion stories of people who are being offered opposite sex or puberty blocker hormones.
Like, sure, I wear dresses, but I like wearing knee-length shorts and cut-off t-shirts, and I sweat, and I'll look in the mirror and turn to my husband and be like, wow, I feel like I look like a boy. Like, I have a higher amount of testosterone than your normal girl, but that doesn't mean that just because I might be a little bit more like a guy, that my body needs to change. What we're instilling in these children by saying, oh, you were born in a female body, but you feel more like a boy, so we need to change what you look like, is telling them you won't be accepted for who you are. If you remain a girl and you want to wear knee-length shorts, like, that's not, it's past dressing. When you start talking about actual gender reassignment surgery, like, yeah.
I just want to interject here that I did see a video a year or two ago about a mother who was sitting at the table with her born male, now identifying as female, child, who stated that they felt that their penis was a birth defect. I was so upset hearing that. To say, for a child to think that their body in and of itself is a birth defect, do you really think that's healthy for them? Don't you think it would be more healthy to help them understand that their body is perfect exactly how it is? And that it serves a purpose and there's a function to it, and what does your penis do? What is, trying to help them grow into themselves instead of encouraging them into thinking that their genitalia was a birth defect? I don't quite follow the logic. If somebody's willing to help me on that one, sure, I'll listen. And I will continue to discuss, because I'm not quite sure that there would be any level of convincing that you could do there, or logic that you could offer me to tell me that it would be a good thing for a child to believe that their body was that fundamentally wrong. This is their body. You get one shot at your body. And yeah.
Let the kids wear whatever they want. But they're still a girl, and they're still a boy. Like, they don't need to change what they're actually being called with the pronouns. Like, the fact that some people truly struggle with transgender, body dysmorphia, I can think that I'm fat, but that doesn't make me anorexic. I'm not starving myself. There is a point that passes when it becomes transgender. And right now, there was an article I read the other day.
I think it's interesting here, right? This whole conversation ties together. This whole 44 minutes we've been talking. I'm talking about temptation versus pursuit of the temptation. You can feel fat. I can feel fat, but I can choose to not starve myself. I can feel fat and I can choose to not pursue liposuction. There comes a point that it passes from temptation into pursuit of it, that it becomes, it becomes disordered. It becomes apart from the natural order.
About a girl who was born, became a guy, then transitioned back to a girl at 21, and now she's 26 and wants to become a guy again. And it's this back and forth, oh, this is what's going to make me feel better. People talk about the suicidal aspect. That is not the only piece of why. And if it is, the whole concept of being loved as a whole person, this stems back into, oh, you don't feel feminine enough with your flat chest? Go get breast implants. Our whole society is shaped around this piece that says we need to mutilate our bodies in order to be accepted, in order to be approved of, when that's simply not true. We are loved deeply for who we are through God, through the one who sent his son to die on the cross. There are those pieces, and we're simply loved. We are loved by who we are. We should be loved for who we are by our parents. They are the implemented piece. And if you unfortunately had bad parents, there are still others out there. Go to a church, find a priest. There are people who do love you for exactly who you are, and you don't need to change your body. You don't need to change your name in order to be that person. So I just want to leave you guys with that. Just know that this whole concept of saying like, oh, this is her penis.
Pausing. So because people say, well, would you rather have an alive son or a dead daughter? It's this emotional blackmail. If you don't let your child pursue transition, then they're going to kill themselves. It's emotional blackmail. That is what that is. Because the suicidal aspect, like, I have read countless accounts of people who were told, if you don't transition, you will become suicidal. There are doctors or psychologists telling children this, young adults, whatever age it might be, if you don't pursue this, you will become suicidal. It is so unethical, and it is when you're looking for purpose and fulfillment. That is what this is all about, right? You're looking for purpose and fulfillment. It is not going to be found outside of God. You can look for fulfillment everywhere you want. You can look at it from pursuing partners. You can look for it in having a bunch of kids. You can look for it in countless places. Unless God is the foundation of that, there will be an emptiness. There is a God-shaped hole in your heart. People talk about it, and it's true. He is the one that can offer you purpose and fulfillment. He is the one that offers life and life abundantly. He is the one that is there for you through thick and thin. He loves you unconditionally. And that love has to be accepted. It has to be pursued. It has to have that two-way street of I love you and I am also going to offer my life to you so that I can receive your love in the fullest way. That is how we receive love from God, is by submitting to him.
Like, I mean, a cat's a cat, a dog's a dog. Like, a penis is male. It's male genitalia. Your body does not define who you are inside. Okay? Like, you can be a guy and be feminine. You can be a girl and be masculine. It doesn't mean that you need to change your body. Like, and if somebody is truly struggling with that, then they can choose when they're 25 and their cerebral cortex, the decision-making part of your brain, is fully developed at 25, that they want to go through a gender reassignment surgery, because at that point, it is truly an issue and should be addressed. So, hope this is helpful. God bless you all. Know that you are loved exactly as you are, and we will see you again next week, Sunday.
There are some parenting influencers who like to treat that information as some huge mind-blowing fact, right? Your cerebral cortex is not fully developed till you're 25. They try to use that as an excuse for bad behavior for children. And in reality, it's just a simple biological fact about our brains. Like, we are not fully, that part of our brain is not fully developed until we are 25. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist prior to that. But even then, I mean, I think that there needs to be a different protocol in place. I think that ethically there are not enough safeguards in place, which is clear for the number of detransitioners that are continually tried to be silenced by the media. Again, another thing, like, I wish I could remember names right now, but, you know, Chloe, right? She's talked a lot about how she had a double mastectomy and then wants to transition back, but she can never get her natural breast tissue back. She'll never be able to breastfeed. And she was, 18, 17? Was she under 18 when that happened, if I'm remembering correctly? Please do correct me if I'm wrong. But you have children, young adults that are being told that they have to pursue this in order to live a fulfilled life. I'm going to sit here and tell you that you have to pursue God in order to have a purposeful and fulfilled life. That is just two different things, right? And so you can't, and right. So with Chloe and whatnot and all those things, yeah, it's, I don't know that necessarily, I think I said there at 25, it should be addressed and all that stuff. I would say it doesn't need to be addressed in the form of transitioning, that there are multiple ways to address it. There are multiple ways to approach gender dysphoria, body dysmorphia, all of these different things. There's not one clear cut, like, this is the way to do it. I do think that online social media, TikTok, Tumblr, is putting ideas in people's brains about this stuff. I don't think it's healthy for it to be the societal norm. I think it's probably pretty normal that there would be a person here or there, but I was just talking with a high schooler the other day who said, well, it was a friend who was telling me what her high schooler had told her. She had said that her daughter told her that 25% of her high school class was identifying as either gay or like non-binary, different things. And her daughter was feeling like she just needed to call everyone they to avoid offending anybody. And I've talked about that before too, where it was like, oh, well, I, use they, them if I'm unsure, but then also I use they, them if I know that they're transgender. because I'm not sure of what I should use. So I'm just going to stay gender neutral because I don't want to offend, but also I feel I need to maintain integrity to the fact that I believe that pronouns should define biological sex. And that's a pronoun discussion. But when X got added to the birth certificate, and now I think you have what, beige babies? Is that what they're calling them now? Where you're raising a gender neutral child and not telling them whether they're a boy or a girl. I know it's so rare, but it's sensationalized, so the media gets it. And so when you start seeing articles like that, you have to be seeing the articles of the 50-year-old that is trying to swim with teenage girls. There has to be the balance. You can't only show one side. So you want to show the parents that are, having the beige baby. And then you also need to show, well, what's the other end of that spectrum where you have somebody that's clearly could have either bad motives or is actually has a psychological issue going on. For a 50-year-old man to think that he is a teenage girl, you think that he should be that the answer to that is to let him share a locker room with teenage girls? That's the answer that you want to offer? That there should be no pushback? That everyone should blindly accept it and not ask questions, and if they do ask questions, they should be thrown in jail? That's your answer? I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. Who we are is a fundamental truth. First and foremost, child of God. Secondly, our genitalia does define us as a male or a female, because that is how also God has created us, as a child of God. So when you have, I saw that, right? It was, her penis or his vagina. No, penises are male genitalia. They are, you look at electrical sockets, a male connection is the one that sticks out. The female connection is the one that receives. It's a receiving thing. It's yin and people in America say yang, yin and yang. I was taught in massage school it's yin and yang. So anyway, so you have the nurturing, that is the receptive. You have the masculine, which is protruding, and it inserts into, it's more energetic, it's external, it's your outside body, your inside, your yin, your nurture versus nature. There's a balance in the universe, in the world. And so you have those male and female connections, and it's just simply how it works. And if somebody tries making electricity non-binary, I'm not sure how well that'd go, because I think we'd stop having some people got upset about that. I said, has she never heard of wireless charging, right? Like a magnet, whatever, the MagSafe charging. And it's like, well, your block, unfortunately, is still plugged in, or, your battery, it still has a positive and negative connection. You're still accessing electricity to do that, and that still takes a positive and negative charge, which is, and then you obviously have your neutrons also in electricity. But yeah, so it was just funny though, because you have the masculine and feminine. Even still in MagSafe charging, you still have to have a source of energy, which requires the balance of the two. So so it's funny. It's not really a gotcha moment with that one. But anyway, I just, there was another video I was kind of looking at. I was like, maybe I'll do that one. I did talk 1 year ago on October 16 of 2022. I posted a video of what does it mean to be transphobic or homophobic. And I did that on No Hate Like Christian Love, because that's what a lot of people have said. There's no hate like Christian love, which again just goes back to society trying to define love when they don't know how God defines love. So they can't define love for us. We have to look biblically. We have to look catechetically. We have to look at how does the church define love? How does Jesus want us to love? Because Jesus called people to come as they are, but he did not say to stay as you are. So if you want to be a follower of Christ, his arms are wide open. He has not gone anywhere. He is there beckoning to you. He wants you to be a part of this community. I want you to be a part of this community. I want you to feel fulfilled. I want you to feel like you have purpose. God has given me my purpose. He has given me my fulfillment. I know it's possible for you. If it was possible for me, gosh, I tell you, it is possible for you. Hands down, I was a wreck. It was bad. Ask anyone who knew me. And, I don't know, any point before 2013, I've gotten some messages from people who knew me back then, and they were like, well, you better have changed if you're going to talk about this kind of stuff because, X, Y, Z had occurred, and we all know about that. And it's like, of course I've changed. Yeah, I've spoken about that, actually, and I talk about how it's like, wow, I can't believe that I behaved in that manner. But there are plenty of people that I probably still owe amends to for several different types of misbehavior. And I should probably do that sooner than later, I suppose, because you never know when you have another day. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's going to be it for today. I know I just gave everyone plenty to think about and talk about. And I just hope that it can be edifying for our community, edifying for our conversation and our society as a whole, that this message would be heard, that it would be received well, that the Lord would soften hearts and open ears to hear what it is that he wants to draw out for you or for the person that you send this podcast to, because that is what it is here for. It is why I'm doing this, why I'm taking time away from my 4 children and husband on a Sunday afternoon to record this for you. It's exactly where I know the Lord is calling me to be, and I'm just excited for you to be here as well. So God bless. Thank you for tuning in. I pray that God grants you the resources that you need to draw closer to him and in turn to those around you. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.